General Mutaguchi Renya stands in his command bunker near Imphal, staring at intelligence reports that describe British forces operating 200 miles behind Japanese lines in Burma. It's March 1944, and these reports should be impossible. British forces are supposed to be defending static positions along the Chindits River, not conducting deep penetration operations in Japanese-controlled territory. Yet reconnaissance confirms the presence of organized British units, complete with artillery and air support, operating from bases that shouldn't exist in the heart of the Japanese Empire. The intelligence summaries spread across Mutaguchi's table tell a story that contradicts everything Japanese planning assumed about British capabilities in jungle warfare. British forces, designated as Chindits, have infiltrated Japanese rear areas, established fortified positions, and begun systematic disruption of Japanese supply lines and communication networks. Their presence threatens the entire Japanese defensive structure in central Burma. How did they get there? Mutaguchi asks his intelligence officer, Colonel Tanaka. Our forward positions reported no British penetration, no enemy movement through our defensive lines. How can organized British forces appear in our rear areas without detection? Tanaka examines his reconnaissance reports, studies the aerial photographs, checks the unit identification summaries. The evidence is undeniable, but strategically alarming. British forces have achieved deep penetration of Japanese territory through methods that Japanese defensive doctrine never anticipated. The British forces appear to have been inserted by air, Tanaka reports carefully. Glider landings and parachute drops in areas we considered inaccessible to enemy forces. They've established fortified positions with prepared defenses, supply caches, communication equipment. This represents systematic planning for extended operations. The explanation reveals British capabilities that Japanese intelligence never predicted. British forces possess air transport capacity sufficient for large-scale deep penetration operations, organizational ability to conduct sustained operations behind enemy lines, tactical competence to establish and defend fortified positions in hostile territory. Lieutenant General Kawabe Masakazu, commanding Burma Area Army, receives similar reports from sectors throughout central Burma. British Chindit forces have appeared simultaneously in multiple locations, suggesting coordinated operations rather than isolated raids. The scale and coordination indicate British capabilities that Japanese planning never anticipated. The British are conducting systematic operations throughout our rear areas, Kawabe tells his staff officers. Multiple formations, coordinated timing, prepared positions. This isn't opportunistic raiding. This is organized warfare conducted according to doctrine we never encountered. Kawabe's assessment reflects growing Japanese recognition that British military capabilities in Burma exceed Japanese intelligence estimates. British forces demonstrate operational sophistication, logistical competence, tactical innovation that Japanese defensive planning assumed they lacked. The recognition forces immediate Japanese tactical adjustments and long-term strategic reassessments. Japanese rear area security, designed for conventional threats, must adapt to British deep penetration capabilities that prove more formidable than anticipated. General Yamashita Tomoyuki, the conqueror of Singapore, analyzes British Chindit operations through his extensive experience with British forces in Malaya. Yamashita understands British military methods, recognizes British tactical limitations, appreciates the transformation that Chindit operations represent. The British fight differently in Burma than they fought in Malaya, Yamashita tells his colleagues. In Malaya, they were predictable, conventional, tactically conservative. These Chindit operations demonstrate innovation, flexibility, tactical sophistication that we never encountered before. Yamashita's observation carries particular weight because of his success against British forces in Malaya. If Yamashita acknowledges British tactical evolution, Japanese doctrine must account for British capabilities that exceed previous assessments. The acknowledgement requires fundamental revision of Japanese assumptions about British military capability in jungle warfare. British forces have developed operational methods that maximize their advantages while minimizing Japanese advantages in jungle fighting. Major General Sato Kotoku, commanding 31st Division, encounters Chindit forces during operations near Kohima. Sato's formations suffer unexpected casualties when British positions prove more formidable than Japanese intelligence predicted. British defensive capabilities exceed Japanese planning assumptions. The British Chindits fight with determination and skill that contradicts our assessments, Sato reports to divisional headquarters. Their positions are well prepared, their fires are coordinated, their tactics are professional. They demonstrate competence our intelligence never indicated. Sato's report confirms observations from Japanese commanders throughout Burma. British Chindit capabilities prove more formidable than Japanese intelligence predicted, more effective than Japanese planning anticipated, more professional than Japanese doctrine assumed. The pattern of Japanese surprise at British competence reveals systematic Japanese intelligence failures. Japanese assessments of British jungle warfare capability based on Malayan campaign experience consistently underestimate British tactical development, operational innovation, professional improvement. Colonel Tanaka Nobuo, commanding Japanese forces in the Kachin Hills, provides detailed analysis of Chindit tactical methods based on direct combat experience. Tanaka's forces engage British positions repeatedly, understand British capabilities through sustained contact, observe British methods through extended operations. The Chindits employ jungle warfare tactics that demonstrate genuine understanding of terrain, climate, operational requirements, Tanaka reports. They move through jungle that we considered impassable, establish positions in locations we thought inaccessible, maintain operations under conditions we assumed would defeat European forces. Tanaka's assessment reveals British adaptation to jungle warfare that exceeds Japanese expectations. British forces have developed tactical methods specifically designed for Burma conditions, operational procedures that maximize effectiveness in jungle terrain, logistical systems that sustain extended operations in hostile environment. The adaptation suggests systematic British military development rather than random tactical innovation. British jungle warfare doctrine represents organized innovation, structured training, deliberate improvement that produces genuine competence in conditions that previously favored Japanese forces. General Kimura Heitaro, commanding Burma Area Army after Kawabe's transfer, receives comprehensive intelligence assessments of British Chindit capabilities. The assessments reveal British operational competence that exceeds Japanese intelligence estimates across all categories of jungle warfare. British forces demonstrate capabilities that our planning never anticipated, Kimura concludes. Their jungle warfare competence equals or exceeds our own capabilities in terrain we considered our natural advantage. They've achieved tactical parity in conditions that previously guaranteed Japanese superiority. Kimura's assessment represents senior Japanese recognition that British military capabilities in jungle warfare equal Japanese capabilities in specific areas. British tactical development eliminates Japanese advantages that previous campaigns assumed were permanent. The recognition requires comprehensive revision of Japanese assumptions about jungle warfare superiority. Japanese forces cannot assume British opposition will collapse under jungle conditions. Japanese planning must account for competent British jungle warfare, effective British deep penetration operations, professional British military performance in tropical conditions. Prime Minister Tojo Hideki receives reports of British Chindit operations from his military advisors in Tokyo. The reports describe British capabilities that contradict Japanese assumptions about European inability to conduct effective jungle warfare, European tactical inferiority in tropical conditions, European organizational inadequacy for extended operations in hostile terrain. How can European forces achieve success in jungle conditions that favor Asian armies? Tojo asks General Sugiyama Hajime, Chief of the Army General Staff. Our forces are adapted to tropical warfare, trained for jungle operations, experienced in Asian conditions. How can British forces achieve tactical success in terrain that should guarantee Japanese victory? Sugiyama has prepared for this question, but the answer challenges fundamental Japanese beliefs about racial superiority in Asian warfare, Japanese tactical supremacy in jungle conditions, Japanese organizational excellence in tropical operations. The British have developed specialized jungle warfare doctrine, Sugiyama explains carefully. Their Chindit forces receive extensive training for Burma conditions. Their equipment is adapted for tropical operations. Their tactics are designed specifically for deep penetration warfare in jungle terrain. The explanation suggests that British military development in jungle warfare exceeds Japanese military development in specific areas. British specialization in deep penetration operations represents tactical innovation that Japanese forces must acknowledge and counter. Tojo cannot easily accept that British innovation exceeds Japanese innovation in jungle warfare. The admission would contradict Japanese ideology about racial superiority in Asian conditions, Japanese tactical supremacy in tropical warfare, Japanese organizational excellence in jungle operations. Instead, Tojo blames temporary setbacks, intelligence failures, inadequate Japanese preparation. British success must result from Japanese mistakes rather than British competence, Japanese weaknesses rather than British strengths. But the evidence accumulates from multiple sectors, multiple commanders, multiple engagements. British Chindit forces consistently demonstrate capabilities that exceed Japanese intelligence assessments. British jungle warfare performance contradicts Japanese assumptions about European military quality in tropical conditions. Lieutenant General Mutaguchi Renya, commanding 15th Army, provides tactical analysis of Chindit operations based on extensive combat experience. Mutaguchi's forces engage British positions throughout central Burma, understand British capabilities through sustained contact, observe British tactical evolution through extended campaigns. The Chindits demonstrate jungle warfare competence that equals our own capabilities, Mutaguchi tells his divisional commanders. They understand terrain, employ proper tactics, coordinate their operations effectively. They've achieved tactical parity in conditions we assumed would guarantee Japanese superiority. Mutaguchi's assessment confirms observations from Japanese commanders throughout Burma. British Chindit capabilities represent systematic military development rather than random tactical success. The systematic development suggests British military organization produces competent jungle warfare specialists, effective deep penetration doctrine, professional performance in tropical conditions. British military education creates capabilities that Japanese intelligence consistently underestimated. Major General Miyazaki Shigesaburo, commanding Japanese forces in northern Burma, encounters Chindit forces during operations near Myitkyina. British forces demonstrate deep penetration capabilities that force Japanese tactical modifications, operational adjustments, strategic reassessments. British Chindit operations show genuine tactical understanding of jungle warfare, Miyazaki notes in his operational assessment. Their forces move through terrain we considered impassable, establish positions in locations we thought inaccessible, maintain operations under conditions we assumed would defeat European forces. Miyazaki's observation reveals British military competence in jungle warfare that exceeds Japanese expectations. British forces have developed tactical methods specifically designed for Burma conditions, operational procedures that maximize effectiveness in jungle terrain. The development eliminates Japanese assumptions about European inability to conduct effective jungle warfare. British forces demonstrate tactical competence, operational sophistication, professional performance that Japanese planning consistently underestimated. Colonel Hayashi Yoshihide, commanding Japanese forces in the Arakan, analyzes British Chindit performance during operations in coastal Burma. British forces demonstrate jungle warfare capabilities that exceed Japanese expectations for European forces operating in tropical conditions. Even in coastal regions, British Chindit forces demonstrate competence, Hayashi reports. Their jungle warfare tactics are professional, their coordination is effective, their endurance matches our own forces. They've achieved capabilities our intelligence never predicted. Hayashi's assessment confirms that British jungle warfare competence extends across all terrain types and operational conditions. British Chindit capabilities represent systematic military development rather than isolated tactical innovation. The consistency suggests systematic British military development rather than random tactical success. British jungle warfare doctrine represents organized innovation, structured training, deliberate improvement that produces genuine military competence in conditions that previously favored Japanese forces. What Japanese generals said when British Chindits appeared deep behind their lines was initially nothing. Said nothing officially because acknowledging British jungle warfare competence would require admitting Japanese intelligence failures, Japanese planning inadequacies, Japanese tactical limitations in terrain that Japanese doctrine assumed guaranteed victory. But privately, in secure communications and personal records, Japanese commanders recorded their observations. Mutaguchi wrote, "British Chindit capabilities exceed our intelligence assessments. They demonstrate jungle warfare competence our planning never anticipated." Kawabe noted, "British forces employ professional jungle warfare tactics that achieve genuine operational effectiveness. They understand terrain and climate conditions that we assumed would defeat European forces." Yamashita observed, "British military development in Burma exceeds British military capability in Malaya. They've adapted their methods to achieve tactical competence in jungle conditions." Kimura concluded, "British Chindit operations demonstrate tactical sophistication that our doctrine must acknowledge and counter. They've developed capabilities our planning underestimated. The observations were accurate but professionally uncomfortable. Acknowledging British jungle warfare competence would require questioning Japanese assumptions about racial superiority in Asian warfare, Japanese tactical supremacy in tropical conditions, Japanese organizational excellence in jungle operations." Tojo's reaction to reports of British Chindit success revealed the political difficulty of acknowledging enemy competence in terrain that Japanese ideology claimed as naturally favorable to Japanese forces. "How can European forces succeed in Asian jungle conditions?" Tojo demanded repeatedly. The question assumed Japanese superiority rather than examining British capability. The assumption prevented accurate assessment of British military development in jungle warfare, realistic evaluation of British deep penetration capabilities, effective adaptation to British tactical innovation in tropical conditions. Japanese ideology interfered with Japanese military analysis. General Sugiyama Hajime, Chief of the Army General Staff, attempted to provide realistic assessments of British capabilities despite political pressure to minimize enemy competence in jungle warfare. Sugiyama's intelligence summaries acknowledged British Chindit effectiveness while attempting to maintain Japanese confidence. "British forces demonstrate unexpected competence in jungle warfare," Sugiyama reported carefully. "Their deep penetration capabilities exceed our intelligence estimates. Our tactical methods must account for British competence that proves more formidable than anticipated in terrain we assumed favored Japanese forces." Sugiyama's assessment represented professional military analysis constrained by political requirements. Acknowledging British competence in jungle warfare was militarily necessary, but politically difficult because it contradicted Japanese assumptions about racial superiority in Asian conditions. The constraint prevented effective Japanese adaptation to British capabilities. Japanese tactical development suffered because political ideology interfered with military analysis, preventing realistic assessment of enemy capabilities in jungle warfare. Post-war examination revealed the extent of Japanese intelligence failures regarding British jungle warfare capability. British Chindit development represented systematic innovation that Japanese intelligence never detected, never analyzed, never anticipated. British jungle warfare doctrine evolved through careful study of Burma conditions, systematic analysis of deep penetration requirements, organized development of effective tropical warfare methods. British military education produced competent jungle warfare specialists, effective coordination in tropical conditions, professional performance in hostile terrain. Japanese intelligence, influenced by racial prejudices and ideological assumptions about European inability to fight effectively in Asian conditions, consistently underestimated British military development in jungle warfare. Japanese assessments assumed British forces would remain tactically inferior in tropical conditions, organizationally inadequate for jungle operations, professionally incompetent in Asian terrain. The assumptions proved catastrophically wrong when Japanese forces encountered British Chindit formations that demonstrated tactical sophistication in jungle warfare, operational competence in deep penetration operations, professional skill in tropical conditions that Japanese planning never anticipated. What Japanese generals ultimately said about British Chindit capabilities, when they finally acknowledged the truth in post-war memoirs and interviews, was that British military development in jungle warfare exceeded Japanese military development in specific areas that proved tactically significant. British Chindit operations represented innovation that Japanese forces couldn't counter immediately, competence that Japanese intelligence couldn't predict accurately, effectiveness that Japanese doctrine couldn't anticipate properly in terrain that Japanese ideology claimed as naturally favorable to Japanese forces. But acknowledging British superiority in jungle warfare was politically impossible, professionally uncomfortable, ideologically unacceptable during the war. So Japanese commanders said little officially, while privately recording observations that confirmed British military achievements in tropical conditions. The silence spoke volumes about Japanese inability to acknowledge enemy innovation in jungle warfare, to learn from enemy success in tropical conditions, to adapt Japanese methods to match enemy capabilities in terrain that Japanese doctrine assumed guaranteed Japanese superiority. British Chindits appeared deep behind Japanese lines because British military development in jungle warfare exceeded Japanese intelligence assessment in areas that proved tactically decisive. British systematic innovation in deep penetration operations provided capabilities that Japanese traditional methods couldn't anticipate effectively. What Japanese generals said about British Chindit competence, when they finally admitted the truth, was that British organization in jungle warfare exceeded Japanese organization in specific areas that mattered most for deep penetration operations. But they said it too quietly, too late, too privately to change the tactical methods that British competence had already rendered inadequate. British Chindit success represented military innovation in jungle warfare that Japanese forces couldn't match quickly enough to matter. British systematic development in tropical conditions provided the foundation for British operational effectiveness, British tactical success, British demonstration that Japanese military superiority in Asian conditions wasn't universal or inevitable.